Welcome to Science Store online classes.
Don't forget to like our video and subscribe our YouTube channel for all the updates.
Welcome to all of you once again to the physics classes. Dear students, in today's class we are going to begin with the new chapter that is called gravitation. Okay. So when we were started the thing, that is the first chapter we have started, we generally talked about the physics, maybe astronomy, okay, and about stars and planets. And we were talking about, and I informed you about, there were two systems, okay, to know about planets, stars. There were two systems, that is nothing but heliocentric and geocentric. So these are the two systems, and it made curious to all the scientists, or I can say physicists, to know about stars, planets, because all were very much curious about that. What are the laws? How that planets are there, stars are there, okay, how that earth is going to rotate, all those things. Some of them observed and found that earth is a center, okay, and other maybe sun is revolving around the earth. That was the thought. But they didn't do any of the observation, they didn't do any of the practicals, but they found that, okay, some of the, based on some of the general observations, they told that. But later, you know, in 15th century, maybe in 1540 or the beginning of the 15th century, we got Italian physicist Galileo, okay. He gave general explanation about that. And if you consider in India, Aryabhatta in the 5th century, he told about this heliocentric system. Heliocentric means sun is the center and other planets are revolving around the sun. That was the perfect statement, okay. But there was no data who has recorded, and it was like this only, because science needs data, proof, okay. For everything must be, there must be a proof, okay, and mathematical explanations there must be, okay, otherwise you can't believe it, or you can't express those laws of nature, okay. So that is nothing but it is found by first Galileo, and before than that, that is nearly in the same century, that is in 15th century itself, or in the case of 14th century, end of the 14th century and beginning of the 15th century, nearly 1473, that time Copernicus told about this system, that is heliocentric system. In the same way, different scientists, maybe at Poland Copernicus told, in Italy Galileo told, and other scientists, okay, they were doing the experiments, okay, and they were finding that whether it is true, how that laws are going to, how that planets are revolving, all those things. That was the thing. And in this chapter we are going to talk about only about that, some laws, okay, related to the planets, okay. So in the case of 15th century, the Denmark scientist was there, whose name is Tycho Brahe, okay. So I told that in 14th century already Galileo has given some of the things, but people were not accepted the truth, because this was a new concept for them, because generally when you see, you feel that, and you will see that, you will observe that sun is revolving around the earth, right? But it is not true, no. So experimentally this person did some of the experiments and he wrote the data, okay, but he couldn't explain all the things what actually it is. He didn't explain it. Finally what happened is student was there whose name is Kepler, okay, and Kepler studied all the data given by Tycho Brahe, and he gave 3 laws of planetary motion. And that is what we are going to talk today about, laws of planetary motion. And it is given by Kepler, so that we will say Kepler's laws of planetary motion. Okay. The first law is nothing but law of orbits. The first law is nothing but law of orbits. So what it says? So generally all were having an idea that planets are revolve in a circular path. Okay. Maybe sun is there, planets are revolving in the circular path. That was the idea. But actually it was not like that. When Kepler studied and he gave the law, that law of orbits, it changed the idea what they had before. Okay. And that is nothing but law of orbits, means how that planets are going to revolve around the sun. Means the actual method is nothing but heliocentric system. That sun is at the center and other planets are revolving around the sun. Okay. And that is called law of orbits. Now before that I am going to tell little bit about ellipse. Okay. Ellipse is nothing but one of the standard shape. As you have square, as you have circle, like that only, one of the standard shape in mathematics. Okay. So the law of orbit says that all planets revolve around the sun, okay, in a elliptical orbits, where sun is situated in one of the foci. When ellipse is considered, see, for the circle there is one center, right? Similarly, for ellipse is considered, this is a standard shape. For the two focus are there, two centers are there, here we will call it as a focus. Okay. Now law of orbit says that each and every planet revolve around the sun in elliptical orbits. Each and every planet revolve around the sun in elliptical orbit, where sun is situated at any one of the foci. There are two foci as there. You can consider only one or you can consider this. Okay. Now one of the foci we are going to consider this. So planets are revolving in a elliptical orbits. So here when you consider ellipse, this we will call it as major axis. And this axis we are going to consider, that is a vertical axis, you are going to consider it as a minor axis. This is 2A, this is 2B. And if you are considering this point as a sun situated, and you are going to write down the diagram, the nearer point we will call it as perihelion. Okay. And the farthest point or the far point we are going to write down, we are going to call it as aphelion. One is perihelion and another one is aphelion. Okay, like that. So this is what the first law is. So what it says, that is nothing but every planet revolve around the sun in elliptical orbits, where sun is situated at any one of the foci, where sun is situated at any one of the foci. Now since we have to write down, understand two laws, the another law is there. Okay, that is nothing but first one, it was law of areas. First one, it was law of areas, and the second one, it is nothing but law of orbits. The first one, it was law of orbits, and the second one, it is law of areas. Okay. Orbits tells about the orbit, what is the path in that planets are revolving around the sun, and areas tells about the area it is going to cover. Now again, to understand that, we are going to write down the ellipse. If suppose this is kind of thing, again minor axis, again major axis, sun I am going to write down here somewhere, sun is situated here, yes. Now planets are revolving. It says that the second law of areas, it says that the line joining the planet and the sun sweeps out equal areas in equal intervals of time. The meaning is, now say for example, this is the farthest point, I say it is April. The starting of the April, earth is here and it moves, it is the end of the April. Okay. Now nearly it is after 6 months, okay, maybe September or August at that time. Say suppose earth is here, or generally I am going to tell the nearest point, the month of April, 30 days I am going to take. This is the path or this is the time taken, okay, and here I am going to take it as the month of August. Okay, earth is revolving, right? Again, one rotation means 1 year. Okay, one rotation means 1 year. No. Now this is 1 month, 30 days of April I am going to take. After again 6 months, exactly 6 months means maybe year somewhere. The month of August I am going to take. Now this is the distance travelled by the earth in this orbit. Now this is the first point of the August, this is the last day of August, this was the area is covered. That is the line joining of the earth to the planet sweeps up equal areas. Okay. Again, if you take anywhere that 30 days, same time, 30 days means not only 30 days, 1 day also you can take, okay, 2 months also you can take, like that. But generally I am going to give the example by taking 1 month. Okay. So here exactly April also it will cover this much of area. Now it seems that the area A1 I am going to write down, area A2 I am going to write down. Area 1 seems that it is greater than that of area 2, right? Okay, but it is not like that. Kepler says that, okay, that is the line joining the planet and the earth, the planet and the sun sweeps out equal areas in equal intervals of time. In the equal time, equal areas it is going to cover. Now, how to mathematically I can prove it? See, every time we want a mathematical proof for that. Generally we can't say that, no. So that we will go for the mathematics. This is nothing but a triangle, right? Now, planet is having a velocity and it is revolving around the sun. Around the sun it is revolving. This is V. Now we know that V is equal to displacement by time, or speed is equal to path length by time. No. Now displacement is nothing but I have written ds, which is equal to velocity into time. Displacement which is equal to velocity into time. Displacement is equal to velocity into time, means this distance I can write down, this covered distance I can write down V into delta t. I am going to write down delta t, okay, just it is the notation, okay. You can now don't be having, you can t also you can write down, delta t also you can write down, that is a notation because some time difference is there, that is why I have taken it is delta t. Now this is the distance it is travelled, okay. So here also velocity is there, delta t is there, velocity also there, delta t is there, okay. Now we have to calculate that area, is it constant or not, that we have to find out, okay. Area. So before that it says that about aerial velocity. Aerial velocity means what? Aerial velocity means change in area with respect to time becomes aerial velocity. Okay, actually Kepler saying about that aerial velocity remains constant. We will say it is aerial velocity. Actually it is that area covered by that planet in equal intervals remains constant. Like that it is. Now area is nothing but half into base into height. For a triangle we are going to write down, okay, half you are going to write down, base, this is nothing but semi major axis, or this is the radius I can write down, that is r, okay, base into height, that is this length, we can write down it as V into delta t, because we have got from this expression, okay. Now this is area, area is nothing but delta A I am going to write down, that change in area, that change in area, okay. Now what we will do, I am going to multiply with m and divided by m, nothing is going to happen, no, it is like multiplied by 1, remains same everything, just to make out some understanding, we are writing that R into m into, because to make out whether that area is constant or not. Okay. So this becomes mv, it is R into delta t. Okay. Now mv is nothing but momentum. You have studied in laws of motion, no? mv is nothing but momentum p. This one. Okay. M is constant. Mass of a planet remains constant. Okay. Then it is R. Small r we are going to write down. Okay. This is the representation because it is total, not r. This distance, that is r. Okay. And delta t, that is nothing but delta A. Now delta A divided by delta T is nothing but what is the quantity we wanted? Aerial velocity, rate of change of area with respect to time. With respect to time, the area is going to change, whether it is constant or not. That is the thing. Okay, whether it is constant or not, that is the thing. Now mv is P, R is there. R cross P is nothing but in the system of particles you have studied, that is R cross P is nothing but delta T you have brought here, you are going to get angular momentum. Angular momentum. Where m is constant, L is also constant. Angular momentum for a revolving body, L is constant. So every term becomes here, right hand side becomes constant. And we can make out that the area changing with respect to time. The area changing with respect to time remains constant. And that is what aerial velocity is. And this is what, not derivation, this won't come for you for the examination, but we must know that, and this is how we can make out that area is going to change. And that is what the second statement or second law of planetary motion says, that the line joining to the sun and the planet sweeps out equal areas in equal intervals of time. Sweeps out equal areas in equal intervals of time. And third law says that is nothing but law of periods. So what do you mean by time period? Time period is nothing but time taken for one revolution. Time taken for one revolution. Now say for example, Earth is rotating and takes for one rotation, T is the time taken by that Earth. No? T is the time taken. The third law says that is law of period says that the square of the time period is directly proportional to cube of the semi-major axis. Cube of the semi-major axis. Major axis means what? This one. From one end to another end, 2a. Semi-major axis means half of this. Okay. Now time period, the square of the time period of revolution of a planet, the square of the time period of revolution of a planet is directly proportional to cube of the semi-major axis. And this one was third law of planetary motion, which is given by Kepler. Generally it is not the work of Kepler, actually most of the work is done by Tycho Brahe, and Kepler is going to study all those things, and based on all the observation, Kepler is going to give three laws of planetary motion. Three laws of planetary motion, and those are those. Okay. So in today's class we studied about three laws. One is the law of orbits, another one is law of periods, and another one is law of areas, which tells about the orbit, which tells about the area, another one is tells about the time period. This relation is very important for you in the competitive examination. Okay. Again you have to derive, again this chapter we have to derive, for the next videos we are going to derive the radius of that and time period of that relation we are going to derive. Okay. This is what the important statement here. So the third law says that, Kepler's third law says that time period is directly proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis. Square of the time period is directly proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis. So ellipse, you know, this is a sub-major axis, this is the minor axis, this becomes semi-minor and this becomes semi-major. Semi-major means A, total means 2A, this is A, cube of that. So later we have to do that derivation. Okay, later we have to do that derivation. But as of now, this is a very, very important formula, I can say, or law, because for all the competitive exams, this will be a shortcut method, or this will be an approximation method, so that you can find out time period and the radius, all those things. Okay, right, like that. So this is what we have studied as of now, the 3 laws of Kepler. Now we are going to talk a little bit more about gravitation, all those things. Now, as I said, the gravitation was not like, it is not recently developed or maybe in 19th century, it is not like that. From the beginning of the 15th century itself, all the scientists like Galileo, maybe before BC, that is Copernicus, other philosophers were curious about the nature, and they were wanted to find out, they wanted to learn the laws of nature, because we know that physics is study of nature and its natural processes, right, or physical processes of nature, and we have to form the rules of that, we have to study that, right. And we have to study means we will constantly observe the nature, we have to be with the nature, like that only. Even Galileo did discoveries, okay, and he found some of the things, but still earth is having some power which will attract each and everything, right. It was maybe known, but the fact was not known, what actually it is, what is that, what is the character of that, why it is happening like that, it is all not known. But accidentally, after the, Galileo came first, after that, after 100 years Newton came, okay. So Newton was, that there is a story is there and it is not a law, we will say, no. So accidentally found about the force of the gravity, and that is what we are going to talk now. Now earth is having some one character, that is nothing but attracting force. Now we know that is a gravity, and every object which is having mass, they will be having gravity, not only earth, okay, in the universe every object which is having mass. So that is recently found, and that is truth, it is found. See, based on the gravity, Newton also did the work, Einstein also done his work, okay. Gravity, it was a mystery before, and after that slowly it is solved. And Newton, he will give, because he observes that, see, we have studied centripetal acceleration, right. Say for example, earth is there and moon is rotating, no, okay, means it requires some centripetal force from the earth, okay. And based on those assumption and all, Newton will give one formula, not formula, it is a law, that is nothing but universal law of gravitation. Universal law of gravitation. And what is that universal law of gravitation? Why it is says universal law? Universal law means that law is valid everywhere. The moon, the Mars, the earth, the Jupiter, everywhere in the universe, that law is valid. That's why it is universal. Now in the questions they will ask, in the competitive exam they will ask for moon and other planets, and this Mars and other planet, this law you have to apply. Means you don't think that it is valid only for earth, why we have to apply this for other planets? No, it is not like that, it is a universal law. One thing. Second thing, now the interesting is why and what is that law is, that we are going to talk about. And Newton says that every object on earth or in the universe which is having some mass, no, they will attract with a force which is directly proportional to the product of their forces and inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. Every body attracts every another body with the force of, okay, which is directly proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distances between them, and that is what the law which is given by Newton, which is called universal law of gravitation. And when you remove this proportionality sign and replace it with the equality sign, then you can write down one constant which is going to arrive, that is called G, universal, okay, gravitational constant, and m1 m2 divided by square, and it is nothing but inverse square law. It is also called as inverse square law. Why? Because it is inversely proportional to the square of one quantity, that is nothing but distance. It is inversely proportional, okay, like that. This is what the gravitational force is. Now I am going to erase this. Okay, you have to write down the definition by referring the book. Okay, what is universal gravitational force and that method. Now gravitation, force is a vector quantity, right? Force is a vector quantity. Now again we have this no force, I have to write down in terms of vector. How I can write down that inversal law of gravitation, universal law of gravitation, inverse different, universal law of different, okay. Inverse means divided by square, no. Universal law of gravitation is that. How I can write down based on in terms of vector, okay. So for that I am going to take object which is having mass m1, another object which is having mass m2, okay. Now force on 1 by 2, force on the object by earth is rotating that, earth is pulling that, no, attracting that. So force on 1 by 2, force on 1 by 2 will be in this way, no, is going to pull like this, whereas force on 2 by 1 is in this way, right? Force on 2 by 1, isn't it? It is attracting force. So direction is like that, okay. So now we can make out that, so it is in this way, force on 1 by 2 and force on 2 by 1, which is equal but opposite. It is equal but opposite force, right? Yes. And equal, but it is in the opposite direction. Opposite direction, I can say, not in the opposite direction, sorry, equal, okay. Those forces are equal in magnitude, okay, but definitely opposite. No, one is pulling in this direction. The force on 1 and force on 2 means you can write down in that way. Now next, suppose in a coordinate system if you take, so force on m1 is there and force on m2 is there, okay, equal and opposite. So this is the position vector you are going to write down, this is the position vector you are going to write down, r2, r1 to r2, this is the position vector, means, see, according to triangle law, what you are going to write down, r1 plus delta r I am going to write down, delta r vector is nothing but r2 according to triangle law of vector addition. Now delta r how I can write down, delta r which is equal to r2 minus r1 I am going to write down. This is r2 minus r1. R2 minus R1, what is the direction we have chose? That is from M1 to M2. That is from M1 to M2, right? So R21, no, this we are going to write down R21, R21. This we are going to write down it as R21. R21 means in this direction. R21 means from where to where? M1 to M2 direction. Okay, like this we are going to write down. Now we are going to write down force on 1 by 2. Force on 1 by 2. Force on 1 by 2 means it is pulling. Force on M1 by M2. M2 is pulling. It is in the direction of R2 and R1, right? So we can write down G into M1 into M2 divided by, this is the delta R. I can write down R square. Okay, yeah, we are going to write down delta R1, R2, and this is R, no? R square. In which direction it is? In the direction of R21, no? In the direction of R21 unit vector. In the direction of R21 unit vector for this diagram. Okay. Now we know that vector can be written as motion in a plane. We have studied vector can be written as magnitude and the unit vector of that. Now unit vector, how I can write down? Unit vector which is equal to A vector divided by A cap. A is nothing but A itself. Similarly, R cap which is equal to R vector divided by R magnitude. Now here it is there. No, that 1 2 2 1 just represents the direction, okay? And if I write down F1 to 2 which is equal to G into M1 M2 divided by R square. Cap means what? Cap means R1 2 cap means here also 2 1 means 2 1 and 2 1, no? Here also 2 1, no? 2 2 1, no? But it is magnitude, dear students. This is magnitude and that is direction. Okay. Now I can write down, see this cap as like this R21 vector divided by R21. R21 square and R21, that becomes R21 cube. So now when you write down vector, you have to write down cube of this. When you write down unit vector, you have to write down the square of. That is very, very important, you should know. We are writing in terms of unit vector and we are writing in terms of vector. Okay, that is very, very important. So this is nothing but how to write down the universal law of gravitation in terms of vector form, So this is what universal law of gravitation, the definition they will ask, all those things. So as of now for this class, this much is enough. So go through it once again, go through all the concept. So thank you for listening. So again go for other videos for all the details explanations. Dear students, we were talking about the chapter called gravitation and we were talking about the special feature, the character of Earth or any of the massive object which is having a property called gravitation and what it is, what is the physics behind that and the formulation behind that. Newton gave a beautiful formula, that is nothing but F is equal to G into M1 into M2 divided by R square, and we have studied already how to write down in terms of vector form. Now suppose we have told only one object only two objects, the gravitation between them. Now we will extend it for the number of particles, number of objects. Okay, suppose I have M1, M2 here, M3 here, M4 here, M5 here. Now because of the all the particles, that is a force, there is a force. No, so that is nothing but the vector sum of all the forces. No, force on 1 by 2 is in this way, force on 1 by 3 it is in this way, it may be more or less. Force on 1 by 4 it will be in this way, and force on 1 by 5 it will be in this way. What we will do? We will write down a parallelogram and we will add it. No, one force we are going to get here because of these two forces. Now these two forces are reduces into one. No, again this and this we will add out by writing a parallelogram. So this and this is going to reduce it as one more force we have got here. Now we are going to write down a parallelogram. By writing that we will get a net force like this. No, that is what the total direction. But what we have done actually, that is nothing but by writing a vector, a diagram, or that is nothing but algebraic sum, or sorry, that is nothing but vector sum. Algebraic sum means 1, 2, 3, it is a number sum. Now this is vectorial sum, it is nothing but the addition of vector. So the forces on one object because of number of particles is nothing but the vector sum of all the forces. And how we can write down that? There is nothing but force on 1 by 2 is nothing but G into m1 m2 divided by r21 square. No, in the direction of r21 cap, isn't it? 1 to 2 force on 1 by the 2 1 we have written earlier, no, because of that direction, plus force on 1 by 3 is nothing but m1 m3 divided by r31 square r31 cap, plus force on 1 by 4 is the thing but by 4 divided by r41 square r41 cap, plus force on 5 is nothing but G into m1 m5 divided by r51 square r51 cube. Like that cap it goes, like that it goes. There is a general expression, you should know how to write down the vector formula for forces because of extended, because of number of objects. Okay, that is what. Now force of the object, one object with the another, this is nothing but the gravitational force. Now we know that generally how I can write down the gravitational force expression, G into m1 m2 divided by r square. This is the magnitude. We know dimensional formula, right? We know dimensional formula. And what is that dimensional formula is? The dimensional formula says that there is nothing but a quantity can be raised into the power of basic fundamental quantities. No. And what is the dimensional formula for F? We know that. M we know that. M we know that. R we know that. But what is the dimensional formula for G? That if I write down means the formula for G will be like this. R goes here, M1, M2 comes here. Now we will write down the dimensional formula for this so that we can write down the dimensional formula for universal law of gravity constant, universal gravitational constant. And what is the dimensional formula for force? MLT minus 2. What is the dimensional formula for R square? That is length square. What is the dimensional formula for M? That is M and M square. M square cancels, goes to the numerator, remains m to the power minus 1. L and L becomes L cube. T, no T is there, it becomes T minus 2. And in the case of units and measurement, we have studied that, dear students, in the case of units and measurement, we have studied that G is a constant. Okay, there are some constants which are having dimensions, and universal of gravitation constant, universal gravitational constant, that is G, is having its own dimension. G is having its own dimension, and that dimension is nothing but you can see on the board. Now, what is the value of G? What is the value of G? That value of G is nothing but we have got 6.67 into 10 to the power minus 11. 6.67 into 10 to the power minus, okay, into 10 to the power minus 11. What is the unit of that? Newton meter square per kg. Newton meter square, kg goes to the numerator, per kg, per kg square, because m1 m2 is there, per kg square, like that it is. Now, how did we get that? G is equal to, is a constant, and 6.67 into 10 to the power minus 11. That is a important experiment which is done by scientists to find out the value of universal gravitational constant. That is the value of universal gravitational constant, and that is what we are going to study now. That is what we are going to see now.
Don't forget to like our video and subscribe our YouTube channel for all the updates.